everyone. It is 3:01 on Friday. Today is Friday. So we made it through another week. Hopefully that's true. And another Friday happy hour edition of Sitehub Live. And we are joined today by a very special guest, the big game hunter. And no, you don't need your camouflage or deer piss. It's Jeff Altman. And he is a job search coach. So just when you thought you had a great job because looking for a job sucks so bad, this guy, he couldn't wait to get in the business. So let's bring him on.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I feel fabulous, sir. Nice to be able to spend some time on a Friday afternoon before a holiday weekend. You gave me the peak time. Peak time.
Absolutely. Yeah, and your weekend starts early now, huh?
Well, I got a session after you, and that's the way it goes sometimes. You work long days, and mine also start early in the morning, given certain clients I have in different parts of the world. So.
Sure, I believe that. Jeff, why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself?
I'm Jeff Altman. Professionally, I'm called the Big Game Hunter. It's the nickname that was given to me a long time ago. It started my time when I did recruiting and would hunt down leaders and staff for organizations. Did it for more than 40 years, and now I do job search and career coaching globally. I've written 8 books. I'm on my 9th and 10th now, all about job search and hiring. I've got the #1 podcast on Apple Podcasts for job search called No BS Job Search Advice Radio. As of this recording, more than 1,900 episodes. In November 2020, we will hit our 10th anniversary and 2,000th episode, which is still incredible to me. And I've got a YouTube channel at JobSearchTV.com and what's called an OTT television show that's available on Amazon. If you've got a Fire Stick or a Fire TV, download the JobSearchTV app. Same thing on Roku. And I'm also visible on Apple TV and like 90 other smart sets through BingeNetworks.tv. I know that's a really long introduction.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you sleep at all?
No, it's one of the advantages of being old. You never sleep.
All right, I'm getting there, so I understand that. So, I imagine you heard my intro, but, everybody hates job searching, I feel like. So how did you decide to make that your career?
Well, I was one of those people who couldn't get a job out of college.
Okay.
So back in the Stone Ages, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and I was graduating with a degree in political science, which qualified me to do exactly nothing, except doing what I was doing on the side at that point while I was in school, which was work on political campaigns, but realized there was no way I could really profit from it. After all, I was a guy with a degree in political science. No one owned a business or real estate in my family. There's no way I could ever wind up with a job that was worth a damn. So stumbled into something is really what it came down to. And with time, figured out that I kind of liked helping people, even though I was in a situation when you're a headhunter, you're always in a position where you have dual loyalties.
Sure.
And the loyalties are, you want to help the person find the job, but you're not paid by the person to help them find the job. You're paid by an institution to fill a job. So you're always in this position where you're being, hi, I can help you get a job. And you really can't.
Yeah.
Again, ultimately, if what you do is you help people find jobs, I'd be taking advantage of my MSW. And that is, I'm doing social work. I'm not doing headhunting. So after doing it for more than 40 years, I decided to make the full transition into coaching and haven't looked back. I really enjoy the work.
That's great. Yeah. And I definitely get that, especially, we don't even have to talk employment, but in general these days, true altruism is few and far between. When I have someone, with a great offer to me to help me out, I'm always looking for, but what's next? How are you helping yourself, or how are you on the other side of this trade?
Right. And it's one of the reasons why my podcast is called No BS,
Yeah.
because so much of what people get in the job search arena is BS.
Mhm.
They're being conned by recruiters. Matter of fact, let me just put it bluntly, everyone's lying in the job search arena. And this isn't just about recruiters. The good ones are the messengers of the lies between the parties. Because when you think about it, you're posturing for advantage.
Mhm.
And employers never tell you the truth about the problems you're walking into.
Yeah.
And thus, if you have a good recruiter, all they're doing is passing those lies on back and forth between the parties, and they're not adding their own in the equation. And there are quite a few that add their own. So
Sure.
it's an awful position to be in because everyone blames you.
Yep. Yeah. I know last time I was, looking for a job, and I'm like, because it's like moving and looking for a job are the two things I probably hate the most. So last time I was looking for a job, I said, I'm going to turn over all the rocks and I'm going to talk to all these agencies. And then there was one young lady who wasn't particularly good at her job, but it helped me a lot because, she like sat down with me and figured out what can I do and what have I done and my education and experience. And then she's like, can you travel to Buffalo? I said, sure. Sorry, I have an insurance job opening up there. We just talked for a half hour and I didn't mention insurance. And she's like, but they really need people and the pay is good.
And they'll pay me a big fee too.
Yeah, and nobody else can really travel or will travel to Buffalo and back. And that really just showed me where I fit in this equation, that it didn't matter.
Exactly right. You're a commodity in all of this. And like I said, the good ones at least will tell you, hey, look, I've got this job. It's not exactly what you were talking about, but let me just lay it out to you. If you're not interested, you're not interested. No, so I'm okay with it. Those are the good ones. They shouldn't even bring it up, but those are considered the good ones. They're not going to pressure you like a lot of them do. Come on, Jamie, it's a great opportunity with a terrific team of people. They're all like family there. They don't tell you it's like the family in the Christmas movies, right?
Exactly.
They want to kill one another, right? But
Yeah.
they're like family. And, recruiting is just a brutal business because unlike, I'll use the example of a car salesman. They've got to persuade you to buy the car. They don't have to persuade the manufacturer to sell it to you.
Right.
As a recruiter, you got to get two sides together, and each of them is, posturing for their own advantage. Can you get them for this? No, right. They ask for that. Oh, come on, give it a try. Give it a try. And it's crazy making. So tough business. I like this a lot more.
I believe that, Jeff. I really do. So let's talk about kind of how things have changed maybe since the first of the year. First of the year and really for the past year or so, all we've heard about is, I don't know the term, is it negative unemployment, where basically they say, if you want to hire a good person, there's a good chance you've got to take them from their current job. To where we are now, which I'll be honest, I don't know where the hell we are now because I don't think the numbers tell the whole story. I don't think, so I guess we'll start there. Where are we now and how much different is it than the beginning of the year?
Beginning of the year, we got to a point with 3.4% headline unemployment. Headline unemployment is the rate that they always quote in the press.
I appreciate you saying that because I understand that the last thing it is the amount of Americans working divided by those who That's the last thing it is.
There's a second statistic called the U6 rate. I don't remember what it was at the beginning of the year, but it's always higher because it includes people who are working part-time who would rather work full-time. So, they've had to cop to a job in some way, shape, or form that doesn't really fit what they want. Often these are recent grads and older people, or in some way, shape, or form, less skilled individuals who will take that job as the greeter at Walmart, who will take the job as the barista because they basically need money. So, no disrespect to any of those professions, but it wasn't what the person went to school for or was trained in previously. March happens. There's already the undercurrents going on. We go from 3.6% to over 10. I believe the number rested at 14.6, which is Great Depression territory. 50 million jobs have disappeared. By comparison, I think in the Great Depression, it was 30 million. The population was about a third the size of what it is today. So it would just be an enormous amount of jobs that would be lost to be the equivalent of the Great Depression. But we've gone up to 14.6, and as of today, it's 8 point something or other in the headline rate. Now, the U6 rate, which includes the underemployed, is still over 16, which is pretty close to where it was when President Obama hit his peak. I think they were at 14 and change at the worst of their circumstances, which lets you know that at 16, the previous month was 18, and I'm pretty sure before that, if it wasn't 20, it was darn close. Yeah. We've gone to hell in a handbasket. And we're still not completely out of it, but corners turning, and it's going to be a slow road because some states are going to be slow to permit places to open up. North Carolina, where I am, they're finally letting gyms open up again. New York City, if you're in a restaurant, you're going to have to seat people outdoors with limited seating. You can't open up the restaurant, and as the New York restaurateur Danny Meyer put so well, they're saying we can open up at 25%. I've never figured out how to make money at less than 80.
No. I've been saying that, for a while. I have a lot of experience working in restaurants when I was younger, basically done every job there is to do. A good friend of mine opened a restaurant, and that was my thought. Even at 50%, you're better off keeping the doors closed because you can't even break even.
Right. And it's not like landlords are taking less money.
Right.
And the result is a lot of money is going out and very little is coming back in. So restaurants are doomed right now in New York and in other parts of the country. They can't make a living on takeout, although some are trying. They're trying to come up with ancillaries, but it's not enough to cover their nuts. So money's going out and not a lot's coming in, until restaurants and social venues can start to return to even some semblance of normalcy. Like, my area is first opening up movie theaters at limited capacity. Now, it's not a lot of jobs, but people do buy popcorn. They sell tickets, even though some of it's online. Now, there are people who clean the theater. Those are some level of jobs that exist. You go on and on in different professions, and it's going to take a while to recover. Like, when this first started, I said to my wife, a year and a half, 2 years. And that's even with vaccines.
Sure.
So, if I'm wrong, I'll be thrilled.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been in kind of a similar space where, people are like, you're being pessimistic. I'm like, no, I hope that I am dead wrong, on all of these things. But I also, I know these people that are saying 2 weeks are dead wrong. And, if that's the expectation that I'm setting, either for myself or anyone else, I'm going to look like a fool in 3 weeks.
Right. And I'll also go that, a lot will happen related to schools.
Sure.
Schools are a complicated place. Like my wife's sister, her daughter went to school upstate, and COVID broke out. And they pulled her out of there, drove her home. She wound up with it. They're now quarantined. The school is shut down. The school made a mistake. They didn't have an expectation that kids would walk in with some documentation that they've been tested recently, and they didn't test on the way in. So, as the kids said, I'm sitting in the cafeteria and someone's 3 feet from me. And there's a party on Friday night with 100 people. I wouldn't go to that. I went to the one with 30.
Sure. Yeah, I went to the less popular one. Absolutely.
So, kids in COVID, it's the numbers are going to go up. Good news is fatalities have gone down for a while. So, until we get schools back operating with a degree of normalcy, because that's millions of people and millions of jobs around the country, we don't really hit normalcy at all.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that, maybe was made more clear during the pandemic is how interrelated all of these things are. Because you say, yes, schools, if schools were open, or schools are closed, so teachers are out of work, or, but they weren't. But what you don't take into account is those parents that may or may not have to be home with the child or children. Mm-hmm. And even if you can work from home, how much work can you get done depending upon the age and how many kids you have? So, the other big one was, the sports. Everyone said, oh, big deal, no sports. Well, it is a big deal. We have a AAA baseball team here, which, is a AAA baseball. It's not the Yankees by any means. However, if 4,000 people are at that game tonight, let's say 5% of those people are going out to dinner before, and 2% are staying in hotels after, and they're taking Uber, and they're parking, and they're buying concessions. And so all of these little things, whether it's school being open, whether it's a AAA baseball team playing baseball with fans, just huge effects.
Right. And it's where we are. So we can pretend, we can complain, we can moan. It's where we are. What do we do next?
Sure.
What's possible now given the circumstances that we're all in? Now, what's fascinating is jobs are getting filled. Mm-hmm. And I know as a coach, I was amazed with the first person that I got hired in a job in California in a manufacturing facility running that place. They hired him remote and never met him. Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Yeah. And eventually he came to work and started working with people there. But, it still amazes me that after all these years of resisting what we're doing now, being on camera, interviewing people in this way, firms are now doing it. And people are going to work at places never having met their employer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there are going to be obviously a lot of things that come out of this period in time. And certainly that's going to be one of them, working remote, it's funny because, most of the time as technology gets better, we take advantage of those things. But, let's say 6-9 months ago, this format was used so that my 12-year-old could watch some jackass play a video game. It's like, I think we can do more with this technology.
Yeah. And I know I've coached over Zoom for years now, and the rest of the world is catching up with me. Mm-hmm. And, for so many folks, they're learning that you don't need to be in a physical office. Like there's a guy I coach now, and he's never met the people he's consulting to. And the result winds up being he's having a meet and greet with his client this afternoon and has never met them in person. But they check in with one another for a half hour or a couple of times a week. Hi, how are you? And, some clients of mine do, happy hours on Friday afternoons because it's part of what they used to do when they got together. So they're doing something comparable now.
And that makes sense. And I guess I was kind of lucky. I worked for a company, and this probably, I'm going to say 3 years ago, we went fully remote. And it made perfect sense. It was, a digital marketing sales organization. Half of the office was either out of town or in outside sales and on the road anyway. So at any given time, there were 5 people in the office. Why would you pay $25,000 a year to rent that office? So that was, kind of, an awakening for me, and at least seeing that, hey, this can be done. And I mean, there's phones everywhere if that's how you're doing your business. But it is funny how, if given the choice, I think it would have taken much longer, both for businesses, employers, and employees to get comfortable doing this. But all of a sudden, hey, this is what you're going to do. Okay. And mute your goddamn microphone,
And we're not going to go into what's going on while the mute's going on. But, there are people I know who are attorneys for hedge funds. And of course, they haven't been able to be in their office in Manhattan for a while. And now they're in the Hamptons and they're doing work from the beach. And then with kids, the kids are in the Hamptons. And the result winds up being, what's the point? School right now is remote learning, which they judge as being BS. So what's the point? So they're going to stay where they are. It's a lot safer. For a lot of folks in the New York area, they're heading for the hills because there's nothing interesting in New York. If you're a tourist, why are you going to New York City? Broadway's closed. Restaurants are closed. What are you going to do?
Right. Yeah. So how is the job market? I mean, you said people are hiring.
Yes, which is amazing. Now, it depends on what the person's background is as to whether they're easily employable.
Sure.
So, for example, there are a lot of skills that relate to retail. And I know people don't like working in retail. I got it. But right now, you may need survival income. So I tell people, go to the path of least resistance. Go there. If you need money, the $600 a week is over for now. Do what you got to do. And then while you're there, start to learn, figure out what you want to do next. Mm-hmm. Don't expect the employer to say, I want you to run a department for me, doing something you've never done before. You may need to go back to school. You can do that on the side. You may need to retrain at something to do the thing that you want to do. There are firms hiring all over the country in every kind of profession, except hospitality, because it just hasn't reopened yet to any degree. So that's the weak spot in the market, of course, is anything related to hospitality, hotels, restaurants, bars, entertainment facilities. Like, is your local bowling alley open at this point? Probably not.
I don't think so. I couldn't tell you. I know that the local watering hole that's, kind of our go-to after work, whatever, they're open, but you have to wear a mask unless you're sitting down, and you can't play darts, you can't play the jukebox, and you can't play cornhole. So it's a bar in name only, I guess.
Right. Go drink. Don't have fun.
Andy, you have to eat while you're drinking too.
Right. And I know that's part of state law, but it's the only way that the places can really operate is if you're doing a couple of things and they're getting money from a couple of things. So, it's going to be hard for a while. The market exists for everything right now. Mm-hmm. And part of it is that people just, they're fearful. Now, if you're a government worker, I don't care what level of government you are, federal, state, or local, you have opportunities to work. You don't really have opportunities to transition out. You have to figure out what it is you want to do next, probably get the training to transition out. Going to work for government's still hiring.
Sure.
Young man I was working with in the DC area received an offer from the NSA. Graduated school, NSA's hired him. So government is hiring.
Yeah.
And I know, federal is hiring. State, I'm not sure in New York, but in different parts of the country it is. Local, it's complicated because they all know that they don't have the money.
Yep. Yeah.
Tax revenues are down very dramatically.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some things that you tell job seekers that either they're not going to hear from anybody else, whether it has to do with the interview or the whole process? What are some things that, you tell people that holy crap, that's what that means or whatever?
Sure. Let me start off with the premise that the skills needed to find a job are different than those needed to do a job. So it's an obvious statement, but people behave as though all they have to do is walk in the door, announce themselves, regurgitate what they've done, and someone's going to say, I think we should hire them.
Sure.
Well, in point of fact, getting that interview is more complicated. First of all, you got a lot of competition. And if you're applying through ads, wherever that is, a job board, LinkedIn, or wherever, well, you're like a fish in a pond with lots of other fish all trying to jump on the same hook. Mm-hmm. And the statistics have always been networking is the primary way that people find work. Yeah. And the statistic I quote all the time, and it may have been changed to make it even more profound, is 70% of positions are filled as a result of networking. 70% of the 70%, or 49%, come as a result of introductions to people that your network knows who you don't. So in LinkedIn language, your first degree connections would introduce you to the people that they know who you don't.
Yeah.
And that's really statistically how more than 2/3 of jobs get filled.
Yeah.
So most people spend all their time applying to ads and contacting agencies. And at best, they fill 30%. At best. So I'm not saying not to contact them, but sure, you can't spend your day staring at LinkedIn, Indeed, waiting for that next job to come. Oh, I can do that one. Okay, let me hit apply. And unfortunately, most people hit apply rather than tailoring a resume quickly to submit it.
Yeah, it's funny because I am not as active on LinkedIn as I should be. I know that. But I had seen a job, this is a few months back, that I said, wow, that's really interesting. And it was in a field that a buddy of mine is in. So I asked him, I said, what do you think they're looking for? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, you got to LinkedIn stalk the place, and it won't take you long to find out who the hiring manager is. Reach out to them directly. I'm like, you're a goddamn genius. And you're right. I mean, that is gone are the days of opening the newspaper and circling job openings. I have a very good friend locally who swears by networking, whether it's for actual work or for finding work. If I go out and if I go out to have a beer with him and I don't have business cards on me, it's like I hit his car in the parking lot. What the hell's wrong with you showing up without business card? Sorry, I thought we were having a beer,
Everything is an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is an opportunity. And another mistake people make, frankly, is they network only when they need to. That is, I need a job. Can you help me find a job? They become one of those people that we all want to avoid. Instead of cultivating a network when you don't need it by being of service to others and just staying in contact with people. Doesn't mean like you call them every week and go, hey, how are you? You never have a chance to do work or spend any time with your family. But every once in a while, we're recording this in September, and Christmas is the best time of the year to network, because all you have to do is send someone a text or a card and go, "Hi, it feels like 100 years since we last spoke. Let's catch up."
Yep.
And that's networking.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. A lot of people, they hear networking, they think, oh, I've got to pay $500 to join the chamber, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do this, and I've got to happy hours and breakfasts. And it's not. You're right. A lot of it is just, and my buddy Steve, who the networking guy, he had asked me, when's the last time you were at happy hour? I said, well, last week I stopped by my regular place. He's like, no, go somewhere adults go. And he wasn't trying to be an asshole, but I understood what he said. He said, go somewhere where you see some blazers at the bar. And I don't care if you're drinking or not, have a beverage and introduce yourself and listen to conversations and talk to people. And that is networking.
Exactly right. So people need to do this when they don't need help.
Mm-hmm.
It's always, people lurch from job search to job search, acting desperate, and everyone smells desperation. It's like when you're single and trying to meet someone.
I was just going to say, I've always used the analogy. It's easier to find a girlfriend when you have one, and I'm not advocating any of these things, but it's easier to find a girlfriend when you have one. It's easier to find a job when you have one, because you're right. When you're desperate, people know.
And these days, and someone I know said this so well, resumes are for when you're the aggressor. LinkedIn is for when you want to be hunted. Now, I speak from the perspective of, I was the 7,653rd member of LinkedIn. Of the almost 700 million people on the platform, I was there in the first 10,000.
Wow.
So I was there at the beginning. I've seen it grow. It is such a dramatically wonderful place for engagement and learning.
Mm-hmm.
And thus, you can put yourself in the position of being seen as an expert. Mm-hmm. And it starts off with your profile that becomes, catch this one, folks, you're SEO optimized, because it's basically a search engine. Mm-hmm. And you want to be SEO optimized for the terms that you want to be known for. And you have supporting information. And if you're actively looking, you can make that obvious in a variety of different ways. If you're not, you just want to develop reputation / brand so that people are drawn to you and opportunities come your way. Because watch this one. The person who gets ahead isn't always the smartest or work the hardest, although those are great qualities to have. Mm-hmm. People get ahead by being alert to opportunity that often arrives when they're not actively looking.
Yeah, that's true. And I have seen that on LinkedIn. And maybe LinkedIn is just the best example of it. But in general, in this gig economy, even if you're not a contractor, you're not a gig worker, you do have a great opportunity to build a brand. And what you're saying is treat your LinkedIn profile like it's your personal website, with SEO optimization, with, all of those things those are tools that employers are looking for. And I used to do hiring, and I've heard that recently, I forget what the number was, but there's a very high percentage chance that your resume is never going to be read by a person. It's going to be scanned for keywords.
Of course, because I had a second podcast around job search. It was a 30-minute interview show. I've kind of combined my two shows, and No BS Job Search Advice Radio is the surviving show with over 1,900 episodes. But when I had Job Search Radio, my first episode, I was interviewing someone. The way we started it off is I said, on a typical Monday morning, I'll walk into over 200 resumes. Guess how many might vaguely fit a role that I'm recruiting for? And the correct answer was 2.
Okay.
And that's vaguely fit.
Yeah.
So It's no wonder that systems have been developed to both parse resumes into databases, but also to screen out people who are just a waste of time.
Right. And to your point, that doesn't mean that this person that's a waste of time for this job is not employable. But if you're hiring for an assistant job coach, and my background is in broadcasting and entertainment, I could be Rush goddamn Limbaugh, and you're not even going to interview me.
Right. The trapdoor opens up, the chair falls back, you're out.
Yep.
And, from an employer's perspective, the person who's reviewing the resume, ultimately, they're just not reading resumes for a living. What they're also doing is interviewing people, talking to hiring managers, getting feedback, screening people, screening resumes. There's a whole bunch of things. They have to write reports on what they're doing. They have to account to their constituencies about what they're doing and why their problems filling jobs. They're just not sitting there reading resumes. And when they do, they're scanning, and the statistic invariably is that they're looking at a resume for 6 seconds.
And I can see that. I know that, like I said, when I was hiring, when I first started interviewing people, I took it really seriously. I said, hey, this person deserves my full time, my undivided attention. So yeah, I would read the resume and prepare some questions. And then I go in, and first off, it was very obvious this person did not write that resume. And, second, it doesn't, a lot of times it all goes out the window because you ask one question and someone says something else. Yeah, I didn't think to put it on my resume, but yes, I used to run a professional football team, whatever the case may be. And you say, whoa, tell me more about that. And, and I know a lot of people, and maybe this is going away too, but they'll say, you get me an interview, I'm going to get the job.
And those are the ones you never find a job for. Just statistically, I've never gotten turned down for a job, but they always get turned down for yours. So yeah. People say a bunch of stuff because they think it's going to inspire someone to help them, but it's all BS. When push comes to shove, if it's not in the resume, no one's going to take the time to call you because someone's going to actually have it in the resume. Why would you call the one who does? This is the complaint the job hunters have. They should call me. I tell them what I've done. Why isn't it in the resume if you've done it? Because you haven't done much of it, right?
Yeah.
And those become the arguments that as a headhunter, you have to care enough to smack someone in the face and basically say, who do you think has the time to call the Purdue chicken plucker who's just applied for the Java development job? By the way, I had that. And they called me up to complain that I should have called them. It's the bizarro world sometimes in terms of expectations from everyone in a finite amount of time. So without appearing manic, I'll just simply say, make the fit obvious in your resume and in your LinkedIn profile. On the interviews, tell them what you've done that relates to the job.
Yeah.
Make it easy.
I think, it's maybe one of the last vestiges of the 50s-ish. And especially for younger people, they're afraid to ask. I know I work, in a co-work office. We have a dedicated office here, but the young lady was last week or 2 weeks ago was doing tours for prospective, new tenants. And we were just talking. I said, so you made a couple sales today, huh? She's like, what? Oh, well, I got some leases signed. I said, well, that's a sale. And I just happened to ask her, I said, do you can feel free to tell me it's none of my damn business, but do you get commission? She's like, no. I'm like, well, you should. She's like, well, I'm going to see how it goes and maybe I'll ask. I said, well, just a news flash. You're never going to get it unless you ask. And I know I used to be like that. I'd say, you know what? He's a good guy. if I do well by him, he's going to give me a raise because I made him money. Why wouldn't he pass it down? Doesn't happen.
Because he wants it in his pocket, because he's got to buy his kids sneakers, and he has to make his mortgage payment and pay for the taxes for the business, for the commercial rent tax, if you're in his jurisdiction that has commercial rent tax, utilities, payroll taxes, all this other sort of stuff. You're not the high priority to give a raise to,
Right.
until you give notice.
Right. And even the highest performers, if you're happy with what you're making and you're doing a great job, there's not much incentive to give you more, to give you something you're not asking for. And I don't know if I'm wrong there, but that's what I've seen overwhelmingly.
Right. And I go back to that statement, the person who gets ahead isn't always the smartest or work the hardest. Great qualities to have, but it's about being alert to opportunity. Sometimes it's internal, most of the time it's external. And instead of, when the phone rings and someone's saying, I have an opportunity with a client of mine, I'd like to talk with you about, instead of responding with, I'm really happy where I am, take the call and listen. Listen to what they have to say. You can be happy someplace else.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that as, maybe the generations start to turn over. I mean, my boss is considerably younger than me, the owner of this company. And I think there's a lot less of, kind of the old school. I would say the old school is, Jeff, if you work for me and I own a digital marketing company, I don't want to hear that you're so much as writing a blog for the guy across town that also owns a digital marketing company, because that's coming out of our pie. And I feel like there's a lot more collaborative and cooperative, sort of environment that is happening more. Is that something that you've seen?
Yeah. And I know when I did recruiting, I belonged to a network of recruiting firms globally where we cooperated to fill jobs and share fees. Mm-hmm. And we also live in a climate, like you're talking about, a different mindset. I'm among the boomers. In case folks you can't tell, that's white on my chin. So I'm obviously not 24, and my son is 19, and he's very much like a boomer, even though he's Gen Z. Gen Z, it's funny how demographics have evolved. When you think of the millennials lived in a certain environment with a certain family of success and has been encouraged in a particular way. For Gen Z's most profound moment isn't 9/11. It's the Great Recession. That's the first one that really made an impact on them, because they saw mom and dad struggle. Some of them lost homes. This became a terrifying experience as they had to change schools. And thus, they're very much like the boomers in terms of hard work. So it's fascinating listening to my son talk about, he's in a job, and he said, I want to help my boss make some money, because if he makes money, he said he's going to give me more money. Sure. Okay. Well, he has to learn his lessons. That, I can only guide him. He only has the best career coach in the world as his dad. But hey, he doesn't want to listen. I've helped him get a job. And along the way, we'll sort things through. But I'll just simply say, folks, you're the CEO of yourself. You can't outsource your career to other people and expect them to look out for you, because that's not their job.
Sure. And they're certainly not going to look out for you better than you look out for yourself, because, push comes to shove, they're not going to be the ones paying your bills.
Right. And as such, as the CEO of yourself, you have a board that you report to. Wife, husband, partner, kids. Yeah. They are all making demands upon you, as they should. Mm-hmm. And that's your company. In my case, it'd be the Altman organization. And as such, that's where your loyalty has to be. You can't buy the BS that's thrown at you by firms that give you a placebo and pat you on the head. Oh, you've got nothing to worry about in that job.
Right.
We trust you and we rely upon you. You're wonderful. And that person who's telling you all this stuff is so far removed from the decision makers, they don't know anything. Your job is safe.
Yep.
Why would anyone let you go? Because they have to make their numbers.
Right. The graveyard's full of indispensable people, right?
So true. So true.
Yeah, I know. I had my rude awakening to that when I was in management. And yeah, it would be just like you said, things are going great and, woo. And next week, the client calls and says, hey, guys, you're doing a great job, but I need you to cut the bottom 10%. And it's like, okay. And, and like we said before, you think, well, if we cut the bottom 10%, it should make the organization stronger. But as always, there's that ripple effect, that people start thinking, well, that I might be in the next 10%. So now maybe I need to try harder. And some people don't work better by trying harder. And yeah, the days of a quote unquote company man are gone. But I can remember, a long time ago, my grandfather, who's been dead for years and years and years, he was a GE guy. And, it's almost like maybe, people of a different generation, if you introduced yourself, that's almost how it was, my name, who I work for, and then maybe where I'm from or what I do in my free time. And I don't know if that happens as much.
I'm a Kodak guy. I work for Polaroid, Xerox. These are the upstate firms that were franchises for so long. And if not gone, pretty much close to being gone. After all, who Xeroxes anything anymore?
Yeah.
It's like conversations about the U.S. Postal Service. Like, how often do you really have to mail something anymore?
Yeah. I mean, I do. I sell books, like first edition books and things. So I am at the post office. But to your point, I don't need to be. I could, if I wasn't so damn lazy, I could get the thing and ship it from my house. You're right. But yeah, it is amazing the people, and I just think of my mom. My mom's a very smart lady, but she will do things that she's always done because she's always done them. And I'll tell Mom, there's a lot easier way to do this. Nope, this is just fine. Okay. Writing a check, I guess, is a perfect example.
Or going to the bank.
Sure. Yeah.
Going to the bank, classic example. The idea that you can deposit a check using your phone.
Right.
Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. That you can transfer money from one account to another with an ATM. Ooh, that was like breakthrough technology. Now, of course, you can do it online from your iPad. But you go on and on with how technology has streamlined things for all of us. And it's only going to become more so. Because one of the things that I know about this debacle that we've had in the economy is that a lot of jobs are not going to come back.
Yep.
And and there's statistics from the World Economic Forum that basically talk about an evolution based upon AI that's going to cause many of the jobs to disappear because they're just going to be more easily done using AI. Mm-hmm. The idea of reading an X-ray. First, we have a lot of that being outsourced abroad. Mm-hmm. Let's assume it comes back. Intelligent systems can do that more effectively than any tech can do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny to me how we trust machines more than we trust people. I know that if my son told me, hey, Dad, I washed all the dishes, dried them, and put them away, I'm going to check those dishes. If he tells me, hey, I ran the dishwasher and when it was done, I put the dishes away, I trust that they're done. Why? I don't know what the hell's going on in that dishwasher. I don't even know how old it is. But there's something about machines that we trust that they're doing it correctly.
Well, there's an ample history that they do. And every once in a while they fail. Like, I'm a PC user, and that time where you get the blue screen of death and you go, oh my God, I'm losing everything. You have those horror moments, but up until that point, it runs like a charm.
Yeah.
So you don't worry about the failings of the machine until they fail, because time and again it proves it works great. But we're living in another revolutionary time for the economy, or for economies in general. The notion of commercial real estate as we've known it in major urban centers, I don't see a big reason for Midtown Manhattan.
Nope. A good friend of mine is a financial advisor, and we talked about a month and a half ago, and just talking about how asinine it is, excuse me, that the stock market is still through the roof. Just why, how, and that was what he said to me. He said, that's going to be the next big shoe to drop, is when all of these commercial real estate leases come up to be renewed and someone says, hold on, I'm paying how much for what? And
there's 3 people in there.
Yeah, I haven't stepped foot in the place in 6 months. No, you're right. And there's going to, with everything, there's going to be opportunity. And, if you're a smart person, that might be something to think about right now, what to do with all of these empty spaces. I told young people 10 years ago, when I talked to someone who was just going into college or just got out of college, didn't know what they wanted to do, my advice to them was learn how to do tattoo removal. And it's funny and it kind of seems like a joke, but I'm just looking around and seeing everybody has everything tattooed. And yeah, it looks really sweet. And that's a bitchin' Batman tattoo when you're 25 years old. But what's going to happen in 15 to 20 years when you say, geez, that was a poor choice?
And there's a lot more sag in that Batman tattoo.
Absolutely. So that was my advice, was learn this skill, because it is going to be in demand. And what's going to happen is in 15 years, you're going to see a rush of people to be, tattoo removal artists or specialists. And, it's going to be like lawyers today. There's going to be 4 on every block.
I'll give you an even simpler example. Become a plumber.
Yeah. Work with your hands.
HVAC, like shoe repair, which is, it's gone.
Yep.
The difference is we all need plumbing. We all want air conditioning. And if you can do HVAC in a commercial setting, you're not going out of business. Same thing with residential. There's always a need for some version of repair to be done. Same with plumbing. Yeah. And, the rates are not bad. And, people make a lot of money doing it. There are lots of these kind of professions that, no one's getting trained in.
Yeah, no one wants to do them because, when I was in high school, that was almost the fallback. Oh, you're not going to be a doctor, lawyer, blah, 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 blah. You can't do any of those things. So you're going to learn how to work with your hands and you're going to learn a trade. That was almost the fallback. And it has led to what's happening today. I talk to people in, various professions, and I'm talking to them about marketing. And they say, you know what, Jamie, I wish I needed marketing. What I actually need is 5 more people who know how to run this machine that does tree stump removal. That's what I need. Someone that knows how to run the machine. And then I can gladly take on more clients. So yeah, that's a great point. And as we wrap up, one more thing, and I've seen a lot of this in the news with interviews and things, and it was something that always bothered me. was putting your pay for your previous jobs and when the person asks you, so what are you looking to make? I know there's a big push to make those illegal, which frankly I'd love because I drive myself nuts. So what is your advice to people, when they're asked that, hey, what are you looking for in terms of salary?
I have to couch this by saying it depends on whether you're in a jurisdiction where they can ask or not ask. So
Sure.
let me deal with the not ask scenario. It starts off with, could you give me a sense of the salary range for the role, just so I have a perspective on it? Because obviously, neither of us wants to interview me if this job is out of line. So they're going to give you a range, and then they're going to say it's going to depend upon your experience.
And
they're going to give you all the hedge stuff. And I know that human nature is to say, I'm just going to pick numbers at random, 1 to 120. Okay, so we all hear 120, we never hear the 100.
Yep.
So the correct response is to say, yeah, that would work for me, or that's going to be a little bit low. Let's get acquainted, and let's see if there's reason to be flexible, or whether you can be a little flexible once we get to know one another. That's in the areas where it's not legal. The problem in the areas where it's still legal is that there's the power differential. And the power differential requires that you disclose. The however is you can always hedge. And it starts off with, I'm currently earning about such and such. What are you looking for? I'm really looking for an opportunity where I can learn, grow, get ahead, do interesting work, all that kind of happy stuff. And if you decide I'm the right person for you, and Lord knows from what I've read, this seems like a great opportunity for me, I would just ask you to make your strongest offer. Well, what are you looking for? Becomes the follow-up to that because they want to hear a number.
Yeah.
And once they start pressing you for the number, I really don't have enough information to really finalize that. But my thinking has been between such and such and such and such. Okay. And would you be flexible? It's hard for me to really know whether I should be flexible because, frankly, I haven't met anyone there, haven't met my future boss, don't really know what the work is all about. I've read a job description, I've talked to you. How can I agree to be flexible without knowing a lot more?
Yeah.
So the goal is to always push it off because the person who's really pressing you for the number is not the real decision maker. That's HR. HR just wants to know that you check the boxes. They're measured on numbers of hires that get closed within a salary range, and they're box checkers. And no disrespect to you folks in HR, it's the way it is.
Yeah.
You don't make the real decision. You can be a great advocate for someone, but ultimately it's the hiring manager who makes the choice. So once you get to the hiring manager, your job is to make them fall in love. Just no love, no money, no honey.
Yeah, it's true. Is it an overgeneralization to say that almost everything you hear in a job interview is going to be bullshit?
A lot of it will be. And I say from the perspective of, when I worked in search, the thing that caused me to have my first major aha moment was I realized that I'd never heard a client say to me, Jeff, I've got a problem here. I've just taken over this group and they are awful. And my predecessor got fired and her predecessor got fired. It doesn't take a genius to figure out my butt's on the line and I'm looking for someone who's going to help me save my ass. No one says that. Like I joked before, they always talk about a great team of people, smart, interesting work. And it's a con. It's a con. So, is it all BS? No. Along the way, you can test it to see how much BS they're throwing at you. And if you're wise, you notice not just simply what's said, but the looks on their face, the little remarks that with their eyes or their mouth that kind of suggest horror or surprise.
I would say certainly in a sales job, any interview that I've been in where I hear salary is right out, we have a guy that made, oh, I bet you do. Or, our average is, like, I get it.
After 1 year, you person who's just graduated from the Post Toasties Academy, you can expect to earn over $250,000.
Expect to is such a great phrase. Yeah.
Up to. So
perfect.
So much BS.
Awesome. Jeff, I really appreciate your time. I think that this is obviously a changing landscape for all of us, for people seeking employment, for people seeking employees. We're really in uncharted territory. So, I'm sure that you're going to be a great help to a lot of people.
And if folks visit that website, thebiggamehunter.us, I've got thousands of posts there. Again, my YouTube channel at JobSearchTV.com, or my podcast at No BS Job Search Advice Radio. So much great information I give away for free. And if you have a question for me, there's 2 ways I respond to questions. One at thebiggamehunter.us/video answers. I'll send back a 3 to 5 minute video in answer to your question. Or if you want to talk with me for 15 minutes or so, thebiggamehunter.us/live. And that one you schedule time. I charge for both services, but it's very inexpensive. It just becomes a way that I screen out people who all they want to do is suck the oxygen out of my day, because a lot of folks do.
I read a great article a long time ago that I keep going back to. I believe it was the CEO of 37 Signals, if that's a thing, whatever. One of the things he said was, if you have a product that you believe in, charge real money for it, because that's how somebody else is going to respect that product. So your time, Christ, there's nothing more valuable than your time. So absolutely. I appreciate your time, Jeff. I will definitely tune into the podcast, and I hope you have continued success, and I hope you get some live music down there in Asheville soon.
Eventually we will. Jamie, thanks for having me on. And folks, Jamie, be great.
You too, Jeff. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Bye. All right, everyone. That was Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. That was really cool. I think some great advice there. And again, if you are in a position where you're searching for a job, go to thebiggamehunter.us. You can bet your ass that the person that's looking to fill that position is paying someone a lot of money to advise them on how to fill the position. So if you're looking to get hired, you have someone on your side too. Might not like it. I don't love it, but it's the world we live in today. So represent yourself and do the best that you can for yourself to put yourself in a good position. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Those of you that are watching this after the fact, thank you very much. Feel free to share this video if anyone you know would like it. As always, you can check our website for the upcoming schedule. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Stay safe and healthy and have fun.